My beloved child, pause here for a moment, because what you are about to hear was not placed before you by accident. Something has been unfolding quietly behind the scenes, something your eyes could not witness and your ears were never meant to hear until this exact moment. Do not move away from this message too quickly. There is a reason your spirit felt drawn here, a reason your heart has been restless, a reason certain memories have returned without warning. Heaven has been watching a hidden conversation, and in that conversation, your soulmate finally spoke the truth about you. They did not say it in front of a crowd. They did not post it where everyone could see. They did not speak with confidence, pride, or rehearsed words. They spoke in secret, in a moment when their walls were lower than usual and the weight inside their heart had become too heavy to carry alone. What they revealed was not casual. It was not a passing thought. It was something they had been holding back for longer than anyone realized. Stay close, because the first thing they admitted may surprise you, but it is not the deepest part of what happened. There was someone sitting across from them, someone they trusted enough to hear what they had never said out loud before. At first, your soulmate tried to change the subject. They smiled as if everything was normal. They spoke about ordinary things, small distractions, anything that could keep the truth buried a little longer. But the person with them noticed something unusual. Every time your name was mentioned, even indirectly, their entire energy shifted. Their voice became quieter. Their eyes moved away. Their hands became restless. And then came the question they had been avoiding: what do you really feel about this person? For several seconds, your soulmate said nothing. But silence, my child, is not always emptiness. Sometimes silence is a door behind which 1,000 unsaid words are waiting. Sometimes silence is the final moment before truth steps into the room. Your soulmate looked down, took a slow breath, and said, "I do not know how to explain what this person does to me." That sentence changed the atmosphere. The person listening leaned closer, but your soulmate still hesitated. They had spent so much time protecting themselves that honesty felt dangerous, not because their feelings were wrong, but because the feelings were real. Real feelings create real vulnerability, and vulnerability was the place your soulmate had been trying not to visit. Yet something inside them had reached its limit. They began speaking about the first time they noticed you differently. It may not have been the first time they saw you. It may not have been a dramatic moment. There may have been no music, no perfect lighting, no obvious sign that anything important had happened. But something in you stayed with them after the moment passed. They remembered the way you spoke. They remembered something in your eyes. They remembered how your presence felt both comforting and unsettling, as though you carried a familiarity they could not explain. They told the person beside them that meeting you did not feel like meeting someone completely new. It felt like remembering someone they had somehow known before. Do not skip this, because what they said next revealed why they have seemed so uncertain. Your soulmate confessed that you affected them more deeply than they wanted to admit. They said they could be having an ordinary day, focused on work, family, responsibilities, or routine, and then one thought of you could change their entire emotional state. Sometimes the thought brought peace. Sometimes it brought longing. Sometimes it brought regret. But it never brought indifference. They tried to call it curiosity. Then they tried to call it attachment. Then they tried to convince themselves it was only timing, loneliness, or imagination. But every explanation failed. Because the feeling remained. My child, you have wondered whether they think of you. You have wondered whether the connection mattered to them as much as it mattered to you. You have questioned whether the silence meant they had forgotten, whether the distance meant they had moved on, whether the lack of action meant there was no emotion behind it. But in that secret conversation, they admitted something that even they had been afraid to face. They said, "No matter what I do, I keep coming back to this person in my mind." The one listening asked, "Why?" And your soulmate answered, "Because something feels unfinished." That word, unfinished, carried more weight than they expected. They were not only talking about conversations that never happened. They were not only talking about messages left unsent or moments that ended too soon. They were talking about an emotional story that never reached its true beginning. Somewhere inside them, they feel that what happened between you was only the surface of something much larger. They feel there was more to say. More to understand. More to experience. More truth waiting beneath everything that became confusing. But stay with me, because this is where the conversation became more personal. Your soulmate admitted that you saw through them in a way that made them feel both safe and exposed. They said other people often accept the version of them that is easy to present, the confident version, the composed version, the version that knows how to smile and say the right thing. But with you, they felt as though pretending would never be enough. You noticed what they did not say. You felt when their energy changed. You understood the meaning behind pauses they hoped no one would question. And that frightened them. Not because you did anything wrong, but because being truly seen can be overwhelming for someone who has spent years hiding their deepest fears. Your soulmate did not know whether you would stay if you saw all of them. They did not know whether you would still care if you discovered the parts of their heart they considered difficult, complicated, or unworthy of love. So they created distance where they wanted closeness. They became quiet when they wanted to speak. They acted uncertain when their feelings were becoming stronger. They may have confused you, but the truth is, they were also confusing themselves. They told the person listening, "This person makes me want to be honest, but I do not know if I am ready for what honesty could change." That is the part you must understand. Their hesitation has not always been a lack of feeling. Sometimes it has been the result of too much feeling moving through someone who does not know how to hold it. Your soulmate shared that you awakened hopes in them they had buried. Hopes for real companionship. Hopes for emotional peace. Hopes for a connection that did not require constant performance. Hopes for a love that felt steady, meaningful, and spiritually familiar. But hope can be frightening to someone who has been disappointed before. They were afraid to want something they could lose. They were afraid to trust something they could misunderstand. They were afraid to reach for you and discover that the timing was wrong, that the circumstances were too complicated, or that you had already decided they were not worth waiting for. And then, my child, they revealed the part that made the person across from them fall silent. They said, "I think I hurt this person without ever meaning to." For the first time, their voice began to break. They spoke about moments they replay in their mind. A time they should have explained themselves but did not. A moment they should have responded with warmth but allowed fear to control them. A conversation where they hid behind vague words because the truth felt too vulnerable. A day when they sensed you needed reassurance, yet they stayed silent because they did not know how to give it. They remember more than you think. They remember the shift in your energy. They remember when you began protecting your own heart. They remember the moment your patience started to turn into distance. And deep inside, they know their silence may have taught you to stop expecting anything from them. This realization has been following them. They may not show it publicly. They may still appear calm. They may still go through their day as though everything is fine. But in private, they have been confronting the possibility that they pushed away the one person they secretly hoped would remain. Do not leave now, because the next admission was even more powerful. The person listening asked, "Then why have you not told them?" Your soulmate had no immediate answer. They looked away again, but this time the silence was different. It was not confusion. It was shame. Finally, they said, "Because I do not know if I deserve another chance." My child, those words did not come from a lack of love. They came from regret. Your soulmate fears that too much time has passed. They fear you have changed. They fear you have become stronger without them and may no longer have space for the uncertainty they once brought into your life. They fear that reaching out could reopen an old wound. They fear you may listen politely while your heart has already moved beyond them. But underneath all those fears is another truth. They still want to know. They want to know whether the door is completely closed. They want to know whether you ever think of them. They want to know whether the connection they feel is only living inside their imagination or whether some part of you still feels it too. They told the person beside them, "Sometimes I feel like this person is still close to me, even when they are nowhere near." That statement was not made lightly. Your soulmate has felt your presence in quiet moments. A song has played and brought you back instantly. A certain place has reminded them of something you once said. They have seen a familiar expression on a stranger and thought of your face. They have reached for their phone with the impulse to contact you, only to stop themselves before the screen could reveal how much they still care. They have written words they never sent. They have imagined conversations that never happened. They have wondered what your voice would sound like if you spoke to them with complete honesty. And more than once, they have asked themselves whether the universe keeps bringing you back to their heart for a reason. You may have felt their energy as well. There may have been nights when they entered your thoughts without explanation. There may have been mornings when you woke with a strange heaviness, as though someone far away had been speaking to your spirit. There may have been moments when you were ready to release the entire connection, only for a memory to rise again with unexpected force. This does not mean you must chase. It does not mean you must abandon wisdom. It does not mean every feeling must become an action. But it does mean that the story inside your soulmate is not as finished as their silence made it appear. The secret conversation continued, and the person listening asked a more difficult question. Are you in love with them? Your soulmate froze. The room became still. This was the question they had spent so much time avoiding because once answered, nothing inside them could remain the same. At first, they gave an uncertain smile. Then they tried to say the word was too serious. They tried to explain that feelings were complicated. They tried to protect themselves with careful language. But the person listening did not interrupt. And eventually, your soulmate whispered, "I do not know what else to call it." That was the closest they had ever come to admitting the truth. They did not say it dramatically. They did not speak with confidence. They said it as someone surrendering to a truth that had already been living inside them. They said they cared about your happiness, even when they were not part of it. They said they wanted you to feel valued. They said they thought about the pressure you carried and wished they had been more supportive. They said they admired your strength, but also sensed the tenderness you rarely show. They said you had a way of giving more than people realized and that they sometimes worried others did not appreciate the depth of your heart. Your soulmate sees things in you that they have never told you. They see how you keep moving even after disappointment. They see how you try to remain hopeful even when life gives you reasons to close yourself. They see the way you hide your exhaustion behind responsibility. They see that your strength is not the absence of pain. It is the decision to keep loving, creating, believing, and trying despite what pain has taught you. And this is one of the reasons they feel drawn to you. But there is another reason, one they were almost afraid to admit. They told the person listening that you make them want to become better. Not richer. Not more impressive. Not more admired. Better. More honest. More emotionally mature. More courageous. More willing to face what they usually avoid. Your presence challenges the version of them that chooses comfort over truth. It reminds them that love cannot grow where pride remains in control. It makes them realize that one day they may have to stop hiding behind circumstances and decide whether they are willing to fight for something meaningful. And my child, that realization has already begun changing them. Small changes have been taking place in secret. They have started questioning patterns they once accepted. They have begun noticing how fear influences their decisions. They have become less satisfied with shallow connections and empty conversations. They have started recognizing that emotional distance does not always create safety. Sometimes it only creates loneliness. The person listening then asked, "What would you say if they were here right now?" Your soulmate lowered their eyes. For several moments, they said nothing. Then they began. They said they would apologize for every time their uncertainty made you feel unwanted. They would tell you that your feelings were never foolish. They would tell you that the connection affected them more than they allowed you to see. They would admit that they sometimes withdrew because they feared how much power the bond had over their heart. They would tell you that your absence became louder than they expected. They would tell you that other people could distract them, but no one could replace the emotional imprint you left. They would tell you they missed the way you made ordinary moments feel significant. They would tell you that they still carry things you said, even words you may not remember speaking. And then, almost too quietly to hear, they said, would ask if it is too late. That question has been living inside them. Is it too late to explain? Too late to repair? Too late to be honest? Too late to show you the version of themselves they should have shown from the beginning? They do not know the answer. And that uncertainty is creating an inner pressure they can no longer ignore. But the conversation was not over. The person across from them asked, "What are you most afraid of?" Your soulmate answered, that they felt everything I felt, but I made them believe they were alone. My child, let that truth settle deeply. They know you may have carried confusion in silence. They know you may have questioned your intuition. They know you may have wondered whether you imagined the closeness, the emotional tension, the unspoken understanding. They know their mixed signals may have made you doubt what your own heart clearly felt. And the thought that you suffered alone has become one of their greatest regrets. They wish they could return to certain moments and choose differently. They wish they could speak before fear interrupted them. They wish they could reassure you before doubt entered your heart. They wish they could have trusted the connection before circumstances became so complicated. But time does not move backward. So now they are standing at a threshold. One path allows them to remain silent, protect their pride, and continue wondering what might have happened. The other path requires courage. It requires a message. A conversation. An admission. A risk. They have not yet decided which path they will take, but something happened during that secret exchange that brought them closer than ever before to choosing honesty. The person listening reached across the space between them and said, "You are not afraid that you do not love them. You are afraid that you do." Your soulmate did not deny it. Their eyes filled with emotion. And in that moment, everything they had been trying to hide became visible. They had spent so long believing the problem was timing, distance, confusion, or circumstance. But beneath all of it was the simple, terrifying truth that their heart had chosen someone their mind did not know how to handle. You. They spoke your name softly. Not as part of a story. Not as a memory. But as a confession. And the way they said it revealed more than any explanation could. Your name carried longing. Regret. Admiration. Fear. Hope. And something that sounded almost like a prayer. The person listening noticed it too. They asked, "What is stopping you now?" Your soulmate opened their mouth to answer, but before they could speak, something unexpected happened. A notification appeared on their phone. They looked at the screen. Their expression changed instantly. For 1 second, they seemed unable to breathe. The person across from them asked what was wrong, but your soulmate did not answer. They simply stared at what had appeared, as though the timing was impossible, as though the universe had responded to their confession in real time. And my child, what they saw on that screen was connected to you. Not by coincidence. Not by imagination. Not by an ordinary sequence of events. It arrived at the exact moment they had finally admitted what they truly felt. Their hand trembled as they picked up the phone. They read the words once. Then again. And as the meaning became clear, they whispered something that changed the direction of the entire night. They said, "This cannot be happening." But it was. And what appeared before them was about to force a decision they had avoided for far too long.